Hope everybody's having a good day so far. I took a day off of work to take my mom to the DMV because she couldn't drive herself, and it's going to take all day to go to the DMV, and it's a very taxing experience. And if you are what you would consider normal, it's it's already irritating. But if there's somebody there that has agoraphobia or uh, anxiety around crowds or things like that, it would be more difficult. Being this open about things is kind of give me a new lease to speak, and I'm open to correction. Open to conversation. It's just I'm just trying to start it. So when I was at the DMV, I actually spoke to probably 6 or 7 different people. I'm terrible with names, and I know every one of their names. I met a Francisco. I met a Milena. I'm sorry, I might be mispronouncing that. Um, I met a James, and I met a Jamie, and I met a. See, I told you I'm bad. I didn't really talk to the kid, so I didn't remember his name. But I've talked to. I had about 6 or 7 conversations with people just because they would overhear me saying something to somebody else about stuff that I went through as a child, and that opened the door for them to say, "Well, I had something like that," and then there would be something that I would mention to somebody and say, um, there would be different reactions, but none of them negative. Nobody wanted me to be quiet. I actually got inside, and everybody's waiting, and I just stood up in front of everybody and talked about the podcast briefly, and then I joked a little bit about, well, that's all today, or sorry, folks, we're closed, or next thing we're going to do is go around and everybody tell us your name and your occupation. Uncomfortable things that people, and my mom was about to go nuts because I was just talking to everybody, and she thought I was getting on everybody's nerves, but I was really just getting on her nerves, which is fine too. But the main one that I want to share right now, and being a Christian and having a Christian walk and a real daily relationship with Jesus Christ, the things that happen to me are evidence that something is real. I don't believe in happenstance or coincidence. I actually believe now that I've started doing this that everything that happened up until this point was all part of my purpose because he knew that I would be able to do this. And I had that in me all this long time ago, but if I had corrected the things that I needed to correct in my life to begin with and not get to the point that I got to, I wouldn't have all these other stories to be able to relate to people because I've got like I don't have 5 conditions, but I've got several periods of my life that were full of misery and despair because I didn't know how to talk to people, and the ones that I did talk to either listened and didn't know how to respond or made fun of me. So, um, and that's what you would expect if you say like mental illness is such a stigma. Like I noticed when she was ready to get her license that he asked if you had mental illness as part of the license test, and I never noticed that. So I also never noticed certain um, things that are in place for people with certain conditions. And the more we do that, the easier it will be. I'm not preaching. I'm just saying, let's talk about it. I can't tell anybody how to do anything. All I can do is say this needs to be addressed, and how can we do it? And a lady sat behind us. What's funny is when they call the numbers at the DMV, it's not in order. It's like A. B, C, D, and then other numbers. So my mom's number was 4. Must be really important, or I wouldn't have technical difficulties. Okay, so maybe you'll at least hear this part because I don't think I can go through all that again. The lady sat behind us, and they delayed calling her number. Like I would have thought she would have been next, but it was another. This might be dead. All right. Well, maybe you can hear me. I don't know. Hopefully you can. Take this off here. That's what I see as like the devil interfering with stuff, um, and it breaks my train of thought, and I don't want to share a message with somebody. So, as you can see, why it would be difficult for people to convey stuff. So the lady sat behind us, and I turned around and I said, "Is there any reason that you would be afraid to go to church?" And she said, "No." I said, "Well, what if you went to the church and they told you that without God you were worthless?" And she said, "Well, I wouldn't listen to that preacher. I'd go to another church." I said, "What if you would? What if you went to another church and the preacher there told you the same thing?" She said, "Well, I'd go to another church." And I said, "Well, what if you went to another church and that preacher said the same thing?" "Well, I'd go to another church." I said, "Well, what if every church you went to said that?" And she said, "But they wouldn't." And I said, "Why not? You know, if we are, our righteousness is filthy rags. People take that as without Christ you are worthless." And I truly felt that way, and I truly feel that way still. Like, if I don't have this relationship with God, I don't have a purpose here. There's no reason for us to be doing all this. It's all happen. I mean, if there's no reason for it, then I'm wasting my time. So I then said, "What if you were molested in the church by a leader?" And she said, "I'd go to the police." And I said, "If you were 4 years old?" She said, "No. I mean, I said, "Would you tell your parents about it?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because I wouldn't be allowed to talk about the man of God like that." And if you understand that, you understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. And not every church is going to have that, but it exists. And why, if somebody that you want to help and you just invite them to church, and that's all you ever do is say, "Well, come to church and get saved and you won't have all these problems." That may be true, but why would they want to go to church? If the whole world is already shunning them. I'm not saying that the church needs to be the world, because there would be no point in that either. The church wouldn't be the church if it wasn't the church. But the church needs to be the safe space, and it's not. And a lot of churches are, though, but it's not that every church you go into is going to have those problems, but a lot of them have a lot of very unchristian things. They have hypocrisy, and they have, and the initial reaction when I talk about any of that stuff, "Well, you ignore it, people are going to talk everywhere you go." Well, yeah, but why? Why are you in church gossiping about other people in church? And I'm not talking about my church, so I hope nobody takes it personally. I'm talking about churches where all they do is wait for somebody to fall to say, "I told you so," or that person will never come back, or you know, and we put those barriers up. They didn't put them up, we did. So if we really want to reach the unreachable, and some people don't feel like you can go to the highways and hedges and reach people, and you obviously don't want to just go up and start preaching to people and they're out enjoying themselves, they may not be receptive to that. But I'm trying to get the conversation going. And it has to be, it can't work unless it's a compromise. And I'm not saying compromise God's word, I'm saying compromise the way we present it. And the way that I feel like we can do that is if, okay, here's the illustration. A homosexual drug addict, would they have the same options as I would about treatment, faith-based treatment? Or would they be told that I can't help you with the drug problem because you have this other problem? And that's the kind of stuff that I'd rather they come. I'd rather somebody come and hear the word and be gay than to not feel welcome. And I wouldn't put them in leadership because it's not about being dangerous, it's about doctrine. And the whole world is already trying to treat it as normal and trying to make strides to make everybody feel welcome or comfortable. And the reason that it got out of hand is because so long we were so objected to everything that when we started letting people be themselves, we felt uncomfortable. So then we told them they couldn't be that. And yes, it's gotten further and further away from the truth. Like, what I feel like now is people used to ignore the Bible, but I think they're ignoring reality now with some of this stuff. And I'm not talking about like normal, I hate using that word, but you know, what anybody would think of as a gender identity issue. When it gets into gender fluid and stuff like that, that's when it's confusing. It's like they keep adding to it and people just got tired. That's it. They weren't mad at these people. They just had never seen it before, and then all of a sudden they're bombarded with it. But if those people existed for this long without representation, and now they have representation, and then the first thing that we want to do is complain about it and take it away. And that's why we're in the state that we're in, because we won't have a conversation. We'll just dismiss everything as not real. But if it's real to you, then it's real. And that's, every person is going to take everything differently. So I know I rambled a little bit in this, I had mic trouble, but that's just how some of this stuff's going to go. If I have an experience that I want to share, like I had today, then I have to get it out or I'll lose it. And I hope I didn't really have any audio issues or anything. If I did, there's nothing I can do to fix it in post. But once everything for the podcast gets into place and we have proper recording equipment, then all of this will look like any other show that you're watching. But right now it just looks like a dude talking sitting in a chair, which it is. But anyway, I'm rambling again. But I hope everybody, if you're having a bad day, I hope it gets better. And if you're having a good day, I still hope it gets better. And I hope that you can share your good day with somebody else. Take care of yourself.